The day I returned to my hometown to start anew, a convoy of luxury cars led the way. My assistant's phone rang incessantly with calls from various businessmen in Thomas Carter, all eager to extend their hospitality and welcome my team and me.
I guess the only reason for this is that I'm no longer the poor kid I once was. Now that I have money, everyone wants to curry favor with me.
Having seen enough of these sycophantic smiles, David naturally didn't want to engage. However, when he saw his wife's name among the many invitations, he couldn't help but be taken aback.
Which company is this Emily Johnson from?
To his surprise, his assistant mentioned his father-in-law's company.
Sunrise Dining.
The painful memories from 5 years ago surged back. David had married Emily Johnson, and because he was a delivery driver, his father-in-law despised him and insisted that Emily divorce him.
To make my father-in-law see me in a different light, I made a bold decision to venture into business. I made a pact, asking Emily to wait for me for 5 years. I promised that in 5 years, I would return with enough money to give Emily a life of luxury.
Now, he had returned, and it was time to fulfill his promise.
Stop the car.
As soon as the car came to a halt, he hurriedly ran into the courtyard. His father-in-law lived in a traditional courtyard house, always bustling with children, and today was no exception. Entering the courtyard, David shouted,
Dad! Mom! It's David Li! I'm back!
Over the past 5 years, David had made significant progress, and standing before his in-laws again, he felt confident. This time, they surely wouldn't look down on him.
David Li, why are you back?
What kind of question was that? This was his home, of course, he had to come back. David didn't pay much attention to their odd expressions. Seeing a little girl in the courtyard, he excitedly called out,
Lily!
The little girl glanced at him, and he knew it was her, his daughter, Lily Li. In his excitement, he picked her up, which scared her into crying.
Don't be afraid, I'm your dad.
You're not my dad, and my name is Lily Li. My last name is Evans.
His in-laws, distressed by the child's crying, quickly took her from his arms.
You're too rough. You scared the child.
David wondered if he had mistaken someone else's child for his and asked his father-in-law where his wife and child were. He had dreamed of seeing them.
Where are Emily and our child?
For some reason, his father-in-law's face showed a hint of guilt, and he avoided making eye contact. What was going on? At that moment, Emily Johnson walked in from the doorway, and David was stunned. Time had not diminished her beauty. She was still as young and beautiful as ever, her figure even more alluring. However, her eyes now held a touch of melancholy and coldness.
Mom, that man tried to change my name. He insisted my last name was Li, not Evans.
David was dumbfounded. By all accounts, if she called Emily Mom, she had to be his daughter, and she looked about 5 years old. But why was her last name Evans and not Li?
The little girl is indeed your biological daughter, David. But I have remarried. And the man I married is your best friend, James Evans.
Shocked David stood there, utterly shocked, unable to comprehend the situation.
How on earth can she just remarry like that? From a legal standpoint, we're still married.
Serious Emily Johnson stepped forward to explain. Serious, after you left, we reported you as a missing person. After a certain period, the marriage is automatically dissolved. Shocked what? I had clearly gone into business. How did I become a missing person? Serious David glanced at his father-in-law's guilty expression and seemed to understand something. Angry, did you do this on purpose? Intentionally reporting me missing after I left, then waiting for the marriage to dissolve? Serious, the family couldn't let me spend my life with a pauper, and I didn't want to continue living a hard life with you.
I'm sorry.
Serious, so it had all been a setup from the beginning. Serious, during the years you were gone, James Evans took care of me. He's been great with the child too. For the past 5 years, the child has been calling him Dad. I hope you can understand and not disrupt our lives. Heartbroken, what did these 5 years mean to me then? I had been longing day and night to reunite with my wife and child, only to find out it was all a lie. Serious David couldn't accept it. Unfriendly, you are no longer married, and we have custody of the child. Get out of here. Unfriendly, James Evans will be here soon. I don't want him to see any misunderstandings. Serious, just then, there was a sound at the door. Cheerful Lily, look what Daddy bought you. Excited, a new backpack, and it's a brand name. Daddy, you're the best. Annoyed, a brand name backpack? You'll spoil our daughter. Cheerful, it's not expensive, just over 7,000. Serious, the next second, he saw David, and his face showed great surprise, followed by a look of guilt for taking another man's wife and child. Surprised David.
Li?
Serious, yes, this whole family had wronged David, but they had no intention of admitting their fault. Friendly, when did you come back, brother? Let's go out for a meal, my treat. Angry, don't be so fake. I don't have a brother like you. Serious, James Evans looked displeased. Unfriendly, it's been 5 years. I don't know if you've gained any skills, but your temper has certainly grown. Serious, seeing David act roughly towards James Evans, his daughter rushed over to hit him. Angry, don't touch my dad, you bad man. Serious, Emily Johnson slapped David across the face, and then worriedly asked James Evans. Worried, honey, are you okay? Did you get hurt? Heartbroken, but who is really the villain here? David's wife and daughter were helping someone else hit him. It was truly heartbreaking. Unfriendly, David Lee, apologize to my husband, or this won't end well. Serious, David couldn't say a word for a long time. Finally, he laughed. Laughed like a fool. Sad, James Evans, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I wish you both a long and happy life together. Serious, then David turned to leave, feeling like he was losing control of his emotions. Serious, wait. Serious, James Evans stopped David and handed him a business card. Serious, it's tough out there, isn't it? Some people can't make a name for themselves in a lifetime, let alone in 7 years. This is my card. It has my company's address. You can find a job under me. When you get to the company, don't call me James Evans. Show some respect and call me boss. And call Emily Johnson madam. Serious, David couldn't outtalk someone as educated as James Evans and ended up being fed a mouthful of bitterness. James Evans wasn't done provoking him. He took Emily Johnson's hand and said, Cheerful, I have a party tonight.
Come with me.
After that, we'll go for a sauna, have a romantic bath, and enjoy some time together. Shy M.
David Lee felt a bit down, so he bought 24 beers and sat at the hotel entrance, drinking late into the night. After a while, a pair of white sneakers appeared in front of him. David looked up and saw it was Emily Johnson.
David Lee, what are you doing sitting on the ground?
I live here.
Here? Still the same as before, taking a photo and thinking you're rich.
David gave a bitter smile. From her expression, he could tell this hotel was expensive. But it was all arranged by his assistant, so he didn't know exactly how much it cost.
And you, not sweet with James Evans?
At that moment, David's assistant walked out of the hotel and saw him sitting on the dirty steps, looking quite displeased.
Chairman, why are you sitting here?
In their eyes, David should always be high and mighty, sitting in the most luxurious seat. That way, they would also feel proud following him. But David might have gotten used to being laid back. David stood up from the ground, just about to say something, when Emily Johnson rushed towards the assistant.
You must be the chairman's secretary. I'm Emily Johnson, James Evans' wife. I brought some local specialties for the chairman.
The assistant was immediately stunned. James Evans' fiancé? He knew David founded the company and returned to Thomas Carter all for a woman named Emily Johnson, so he was even more shocked to hear this.
Isn't your husband David Lee?
A hint of self-mockery flashed across Emily's face.
I did have a failed marriage. Sorry to make you laugh.
Hearing this, David took another swig of beer and sat back down on the dirty steps, saying nothing. His heart ached. The assistant understood David well, having followed him for so many years.
Sorry. Our chairman doesn't accept gifts.
At this moment, a pretty woman walked over from a distance, also carrying various gifts. Seeing Emily, she said sarcastically,
"Oh, isn't this my stepmother who betrayed her husband and married my dad? What, don't like my dad anymore and want to marry the chairman? That would be your third marriage, how scary."
David then remembered that James Evans had a model daughter named Sophia Evans. Her words hit a nerve. Emily's face changed instantly.
I just wanted to give a gift, nothing more.
Even if you wanted more, it wouldn't matter.
Sophia's gaze skipped over Emily and placed the carefully selected expensive gifts in front of the assistant.
The chairman has a rule not to accept gifts. Mine was already refused.
David crushed the can in his hand and stood up from the steps with a hint of emotion.
Rules are dead, they can be changed.
Then David kicked the can away heavily. The assistant instantly understood his meaning and said to Sophia,
All right, ma'am, I will pass your gifts to our chairman.
Then he gave Sophia a bright smile.
Your chairman really has a discerning eye, knowing who's.
Sophia Evans glanced at David Lee, who had just kicked an empty can.
You must be David Lee, right?
David remained silent, unsure of her intentions.
You're the one who worked tirelessly at your mother-in-law's house, only to be kicked out and betrayed by your wife, aren't you?
David's face turned a bit sour at the reminder.
Such a good man, your wife must be blind. I, Sophia Evans, am never blinded by greed. I value character above all. From now on, you will be my boyfriend.
David Lee is your father's friend. You can't be with him. He's not good enough for you, Sophia.
You still remember he's my dad's friend, huh? Then why are you with my dad?
Emily was left speechless, and David realized Sophia really didn't like her stepmother.
David Lee, are you trying to get back at me? I hope you have some self-awareness and stay away from Sophia.
David's former feelings for Emily vanished at that moment.
I've just joined Rising Star Group as a department manager. I was even thinking of getting you a position there, but now I'm really disappointed in you. Your father told me you're quite rebellious, dropping out of high school. You need to work hard and get into a prestigious university like I did.
Is the position of product director still vacant?
Yes, it is.
I think Miss Sophia Evans would be quite suitable for it. What do you think?
Yes, if Miss Evans is willing, she will be our new product director.
What?
If you two have no objections, you can start anytime. Since we just rented a new office building, the facilities are not fully equipped, so you'll need to work with the regular staff. Of course, directors and above will have their own offices.
So, she gets a private office, and I don't?
If you're not satisfied with our working environment, you can decline. We won't stop you from looking for another job.
No, I'm not dissatisfied.
Emily fell silent.
I told you, the chairman has a keen eye for talent. Assistant, now that I'm the director, shouldn't I get an assistant or something?
Yes, that's correct.
How about him? Is that okay?
The assistant looked at David and then hesitated.
It should be fine.
Sweetheart, you'll be my assistant from now on. Tomorrow, my dad has invited the CEO of Rising Star Group. You will come with me and announce our relationship in front of the chairman.
She stood on her tiptoes and kissed David on the cheek. David knew she was doing this because James Evans had found her a young stepmother. After Sophia left, Emily couldn't wait to confront David.
David Lee, what just happened? How did Sophia become a director with just one word from you? As far as I know, Rising Star Group has very high standards. You need at least a master's degree from a prestigious university to get in. Sophia didn't even graduate from high school.
David Lee, be honest. Do you have some?
Just as I was about to speak, a luxurious car pulled up at the hotel entrance. Out stepped James Evans, always impeccably dressed in a suit, wearing a designer watch and shoes, exuding the aura of a successful man. In this regard, I truly couldn't compare to him.
Emily, we have a dinner with the Rising Star Group tomorrow. I'm here to take you home.
He then shot me a hostile glance.
James, there's something I need to tell you.
Emily whispered something to James Evans, and the next moment, his fist landed squarely on my nose.
You dare mess with my woman? You're a disgrace.
The anger I had been holding back erupted at that moment.
You touched my woman first, didn't you? I hadn't planned on anything with Sophia, but now I've decided. From now on, you'll be my father-in-law, and she, pointing at Emily Johnson, she'll be my mother-in-law. Mom, Dad, I'm off to find Sophia. We'll have a romantic time together and hopefully give you a grandchild soon.
With that, I walked away. James Evans, furious, pointed at me and yelled.
Our brotherhood ends here. From now on, we're enemies. If you dare lay a finger on my daughter, I'll make you pay.
Then I'll lay 2, maybe 3 fingers on her.
The next day, I arrived at the banquet on time. As soon as I stepped into the hotel, I ran into Sophia Evans.
Boyfriend, you're here.
Miss Evans, I'm here for serious business today. Please don't interfere.
But Sophia, without a word, dragged me into a private room in the hotel.
Our business is serious business.
Inside, James Evans and Emily Johnson were chatting intimately. The moment they saw me enter with Sophia, their cheerful expressions vanished.
Boyfriend, sit boldly.
Since I was already here, I might as well go with the flow. I sat down without further explanation.
Has the chairman of Rising Star arrived yet?
Sophia, do you know what kind of occasion this is? That chairman is a big boss from overseas. What are you trying to do?
Of course, I'm going to announce our relationship in front of the chairman. My boyfriend slept with my stepmother, and my dad slept with my boyfriend's ex.
James, concerned about his reputation, slapped Sophia.
If you keep this up, you're no daughter of mine.
Emily Johnson immediately stood up to mediate.
James, Sophia is still young. She'll understand in time. Calm down.
James waved his arm, pushing Emily to the ground.
Get out. This is my family matter. You have no right to interfere.
Emily's eyes reddened instantly, her expression filled with grievance and shock. It seemed she hadn't truly understood James Evans. But I knew James better than Emily did. For him, profit was paramount. If anything threatened his interests, he would turn against even his parents. If Emily was just realizing this now, it was already too late. James Evans had managed to offend 2 women with a single slap, but it was too late for regrets. He was too concerned about his pride to ever admit his mistakes, so he didn't even help Emily Johnson up.
David Lee, do you know how much a meal at this hotel costs? In those years you were with Emily Johnson, you were either delivering packages or working as a waiter. You wouldn't dare step into a place like this, let alone a regular restaurant. What right do you have to stand on equal footing with me here?
I remained silent, watching James Evans lose his temper. At the same time, I glanced at the despondent Emily Johnson. Just then, there was some commotion outside the door. A distinguished middle-aged man walked in, holding a glass of wine.
Mr. Lee, hello. I was dining next door and saw you here, so I came over to offer you a toast.
Thank you, thank you.
Word quickly spread. People heard I was dining here, and many came over to offer a toast.
Mr. Lee, you're truly young and promising. It's an honor to dine in the same hotel as you.
Indeed, anyone dining with you must be worth at least tens of millions.
After saying this, they all looked enviously at James Evans. Although James Evans had some clout, he wasn't worth tens of millions, and the attention made him almost unable to sit still. After a few toasts, the group gradually left.
Do you think paying a couple of people to call you Mr. Li will earn my respect? I suggest you live more authentically.
I still didn't speak. I quietly watched Emily Johnson, who had returned to her seat. After a while, Emily Johnson answered a phone call with a tense expression.
My daughter dined and dashed? You must be mistaken. Please don't make things difficult for her. I'll come over right away.
She hung up and looked hopefully at James Evans.
James, the owner of Sunrise Dining, said our daughter dined and dashed. Can you come with me?
My heart tightened. Our daughter dined and dashed and got detained?
Like father, like daughter. Don't you know I have important guests today?
James, she's your daughter.
You know better than I do whose daughter she is.
James Evans was taking a jab at me, but he was also putting down Emily Johnson and Lily Lee.
James, you've changed.
James Evans seemed to realize his impulsive words and placed a hand on Emily Johnson's shoulder.
I misspoke. I'll go with you.
No matter what, she was my flesh and blood, and I couldn't just stand by. I hailed a taxi and followed them. I also called my assistant.
Bring some money and come to Sunrise Dining.
The taxi quickly arrived at Sunrise Dining. As soon as I got out, I heard a commotion inside.
No manners at all. Sneaking into our kitchen and eating our most expensive lobster. How do her parents raise her?
The next moment, I heard James Evans's disdainful voice.
Sir, I need to clarify that she is not my daughter. Her mother has been married before. I assure you, if she were my biological daughter, she would never do such a thing.
I noticed Emily Johnson's expression, filled with regret, disappointment, and shame. As I've always said, it's too late for her to see James Evans's true nature now.
Regardless, you need to pay up. $238,000.
How much?
We have the purchase receipts. Nos cães, no tricks. $238,000.
James Evans immediately shifted the blame.
Call David Lee and make him pay.
Meanwhile, luxury cars pulled up one after another at the entrance of Sunrise Dining, drawing gasps and admiration from the crowd. The car doors opened. An assistant in a luxurious suit, accompanied by several key company members, stepped out with an air of authority. People instinctively made way, feeling inferior. Even James Evans and Emily Johnson looked on with envy. The assistant exchanged a glance with me and then walked straight into Sunrise Dining. Seeing such a wealthy and influential person, James Evans tried to ingratiate himself but was completely ignored. He watched in astonishment as the group of company members respectfully stood before Lily Lee. One of the company's key members took out a Federal Reserve black card from his briefcase. The expression on the boss of Sunrise Dining instantly became serious.
You call this young girl lady?
A hint of fear crossed the boss's face. Emily Johnson, who had met the assistant before, stepped forward.
You must be from Rongxing Group. Why do you call my daughter lady?
Just as the assistant was about to reveal the truth, James Evans, adjusting his suit with a self-satisfied air, stepped in.
Of course, it's because the chairman has a business relationship with me.
Clearly, he misunderstood the assistant's meaning. Then he politely addressed the assistant.
I didn't expect my daughter's matter to alarm Rongxing Group. I'm truly honored.
The assistant gave James Evans a cold glance.
It has nothing to do with you. The chairman is doing this for Miss Johnson and his own flesh and blood.
James Evans turned pale. Emily Johnson was also stunned.
What did you say? My daughter is your chairman's flesh and blood?
There were some things the assistant couldn't elaborate on. After finishing the task, he left Sunrise Dining with his team, leaving two dumbfounded people behind. Since things had reached this point, there was no need for me to hide anymore. I decided to face it head on. But just as I was about to step into Sunrise Dining, I heard James Evans's angry voice from inside.
How many secrets are you hiding? The child isn't David Lee's, and you have a relationship with the chairman of Rongxing Group?
I froze in place. Emily Johnson, flustered, responded.
I don't know what's going on. There must be some misunderstanding.
It seemed they hadn't realized I was the chairman of Rongxing Group. But the next second, James Evans burst into laughter.
Emily Johnson, you are truly my lucky star. With your connection to the chairman of Rongxing, I won't have to worry about our cooperation failing.
James Evans, what do you take me for?
A cash cow.
Then he added with a smug look.
Since you and the chairman are old acquaintances, find an opportunity to catch up with him and help me secure the contract.
You want me to catch up with another man? What do you mean?
You know what I mean.
I don't, and I don't want to. James Evans, you're despicable.
James Evans, somewhat enraged, responded.
If I'm despicable, would I have supported you and that little brat for 5 years? Emily Johnson, you owe me. Either help me secure the contract, or pay back every penny I've spent in the past 5 years.
With that, James Evans headed towards the door. Upon seeing me, he immediately gave me a disdainful look.
We've both lost. This woman is no good.
He strode away, leaving Emily Johnson standing there, silently crying. I couldn't bear to see her in pain and handed her a tissue, but Emily Johnson rejected it with disdain.
It's not your place to laugh at me. I'd rather cry in a BMW than laugh on a bicycle.
Then she pulled Lily Lee and left. A moment later, my assistant re-entered Sunrise Dining.
Chairman, Mr. Evans just called. Wanted to reschedule a meeting with you.
Late at night, I received a call from Sophia Evans. Her voice was shaky.
David Lee, can you keep me company?
Sophia, where are you? I can hear wind in the background.
On the rooftop.
The rooftop!
Realizing something was very wrong, I asked for her exact location. When I arrived, I saw a tipsy Sophia sitting on the edge of a skyscraper, her legs dangling dangerously in the air.
You're here?
Sophia, what's going on? Come down, let's talk.
You come up here. If you come up, I'll come down.
Whether you come down or not is your business. I don't have time for your nonsense.
I started to leave.
Want to make a bet?
A bet on what?
Let's bet on who gets to the ground floor first.
She took a step forward. I immediately stopped walking.
Don't move. I'm coming up.
When I got up there, Sophia handed me a bottle of high-end red wine.
I stole this from my dad's wine cabinet. It's worth tens of thousands. Since my mom passed away, my dad has been very strict with me. I don't have many friends, and I just wanted someone to talk to.
My response was hesitant, given the dizzying height.
My dad, James Evans, has ruined all my relationships. Every time I had a boyfriend, he interfered. He even drove my last boyfriend to disappear because he didn't approve of his family or capabilities.
No wonder you called me here.
I want to get back at James Evans. We have a common enemy. Let's work together.
All right, we can talk about it. James Evans is a heartless man. He deserves to be taught a lesson.
But all this was just to calm Sophia down.
I'm drunk. Take me back to the hotel.
Hearing this, I breathed a sigh of relief. Soon, I safely escorted Sophia to her hotel, but she didn't intend to let me leave.
Come on, let's get back at James Evans together.
What do you mean?
He took your wife, so you take his daughter. The thing James Evans cares about most is his precious daughter's reputation. Let's destroy what he values the most.
I looked at Sophia. Despite James Evans' questionable character, he had a remarkably beautiful daughter, 5'4", fair-skinned, and in her early 20s.
You've had too much to drink. Get some rest.
The next morning, James Evans and Emily Johnson walked into the company one after the other.
I've heard from Emily Johnson that you're now my daughter's assistant. A man who relies on a woman to get ahead is truly pitiful.
I maintained a smile, as I needed to keep up appearances in the company.
David Lee, I'm a client of your company now. It's not too much to ask you to pour me a glass of water, is it?
Under the watchful eyes of several key employees, I politely poured a glass of hot water for James Evans.
Mr. Evans, here's your water.
But before he could take it, Sophia Evans snatched the glass and, in her current role as director, retorted.
If you want water, get it yourself.
Sophia, are you determined to go against your father?
Sophia ignored James Evans and brought the glass to my lips.
Sweetheart, you sweated a lot at the hotel last night. You need to stay hydrated.
I nearly choked on the water. James Evans's face turned pale. If it weren't for the public setting, he would have surely lost his temper.
Sophia, you're being very inconsiderate. Look at how upset you've made your father.
James Evans, without distinguishing right from wrong, pinched Emily Johnson hard and growled.
It's not your place to educate my daughter.
Seeing Emily Johnson's despondent look, I felt no sympathy. She brought this upon herself.
If I weren't here to discuss business today, I'd teach you a lesson.
I hope you remember those words when we're discussing business.
20 minutes later, I returned to my office. Soon after, the door opened. From the sound, I knew it was James Evans and Emily Johnson, but I deliberately faced away from them, not wanting them to see my face too soon.
Chairman, Mr. Evans is here.
My assistant said before leaving the room. Soon, it was just the three of us, James Evans, Emily Johnson, and me. Old friends need silence to reunite.
Chairman, a pleasure to meet you. I'm James Evans, and this is...
I saw through the glass reflection that James Evans was pointing at Emily Johnson.
My business partner, Emily Johnson.
James Evans was clearly distancing himself from Emily Johnson.
Emily Johnson, we go way back.
I've heard that Ms. Johnson has a close relationship with you, Chairman. We're practically family, brother companies.
Yes, two brothers who've been with the same woman. Quite the family connection.
James Evans tensed up immediately and clarified again.
I don't know what you've heard, but don't misunderstand. Emily Johnson and I have no personal relationship, just business partners.
Is that so?
I pressed my foot down, and the chair slowly swiveled around.
Stunned James Evans was taken aback at that moment.
David Lee? What are you doing here?
Serious, isn't it obvious enough, James?
James's expression was indescribable as the truth dawned on him. However, Emily Johnson's face revealed a complex mix of guilt and regret.
Condescending, David. You must be joking, right? How could you possibly be the chairman of a listed company?
At that moment, David's assistant walked in.
Professional Mr. Lee, the contract is here for your review.
James was instantly speechless.
I'm really sorry, James. I'm a bit petty. You might want to ask other companies if they're willing to work with you. Pleading David, let me explain. Emily and I had a misunderstanding. She misled me. I always knew she was unfaithful.
Give me another chance.
Emily stumbled and almost fell to the ground, shocked by James's opportunism and lack of principles. She also hadn't expected David to build a large listed company from scratch over the past few years.
Serious assistant, show him out.
David couldn't stand James's face any longer. Soon, James was escorted out by the assistant, but David kept Emily behind.
Serious, out of respect for our daughter, here's a bank card. There's 200,000 in here. Consider it my child support for the past few years. Whispering David, do we still have a chance?
David didn't answer. Instead, he called his assistant over.
Sirius, help me contact Sophia Evans and tell her I'd like to invite her to a movie.
The assistant understood immediately and arranged the meeting with Sophia in front of Emily. But in reality, David had no intention of watching a movie. He was subtly telling Emily that some paths, once taken, cannot be retraced. David then booked a ticket to the Maldives. 2 days later, he stood on the beach in the Maldives, thinking he could start a new chapter in his life, only to run into a familiar face.
Cheerful, you promised to take me to a movie, but you quietly ran off here. What? Does the Maldives have a cinema?
David was slightly surprised to see Sophia there.
Shy, what a coincidence. Serious? Not a coincidence. I came here specifically to find you. You stood me up and made me travel all this way. So, how are you going to make it up to me?
Any man would understand what Sophia meant, but David felt they weren't suitable.
Serious, your father and I are enemies. Angry, a girl travels halfway around the world to find you, and you think one sentence will get rid of me? Serious, what does Miss Evans want? Serious, because of you, I had a falling out with my dad. You figure it out.
Was she really clinging to